Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig. I very much appreciate you guys tuning in. In case you didn't know, I'm Craig DeLuz, and this is my coffee. Please take a moment to like and share this video feed, as well as liking our podcast so that your friends can become our friends and join in the conversation. Also, make sure if you're following us and you're watching this on Facebook, if you want to get the notifications as soon as these things go live, you gotta check the notification button. We noticed that Facebook kind of changed how they do things, so that if you haven't hit that, you won't get the notification whenever we go live. So you got to make sure to do that. Just as a note, because I know some of you guys out there have been sending me messages. Hey, how come I'm not receiving the notifications? Well, folks, that's why. So go to Facebook, hit the notifications button. Also, I want to remind you guys, please go to fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. Every T-shirt you buy, the money from it goes to help fight for our right to keep and bear arms. Tons of cool ones, including this one that I have on right now. Keep calm and sue. Yeah, because that's one of the things we do here at FPC. So take a moment and buy a T-shirt. Support Second Amendment and look good doing it. fpcgear.com. All right. I want to thank a listener to the show, somebody who decided to reach out and wanted to talk with me and share some information with me about something that's going on in the state of Washington. It's not so much something that we weren't following, but it's something that in terms of the national media has really been kind of under the radar in terms of how devious this whole thing has been in terms of what's going on in Washington State. So I want to make sure, Chin Silver Chan, I want to thank you in Washington State. Those of you guys who know him, please reach out to him. Tell him, true patriot. He wanted to make sure that the entire nation had a chance to hear about what is going on in the state of Washington and how the gun grabbers are going out of their way, breaking all sorts of laws and rules in order to get what it is that they want. And right now, it appears that they're on their way to getting it, at least so far. But it's not too late to stop them. So here's what we're talking about. We're talking about an initiative. All right, this initiative is Hold on, let me look it up. Hold on, wait. Let me look it up again here. Let me pull it up here so that you guys can see it. All right, so the initiative is I-1639. It's I-1639. This is an anti-gun initiative that's being put out and being pushed out, obviously by Bloomberg and the gun grabbers in New York City. It's got a lot of big money behind it because it includes a lot of rich Seattle multimillionaires / billionaires who've put their money in order to gather signatures for this particular initiative. Now, you may have heard through social media and some various different places that the whole signature gathering process was really shady. I mean, you had people who were seeking to get signatures were declaring that it was one thing and that it was another. They were simply saying that all it did was this. It dealt with raising the minimum age to purchase a firearm. But in fact, it actually does a lot more than that. It has enhanced background checks in order to be able to purchase certain long guns. It also included storage requirements and reporting requirements if your firearm should be stolen. I mean, it's a pretty extensive increase in gun control in the state of Washington. But they weren't telling people all of that. They were just telling them the one thing that they knew polled well. If they were telling them anything at all. In some cases, it's been reported that they were telling people that the initiative did one thing and then having them actually sign another. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why did they need to do this, and why was it so easy for them to get away with it? Well, one only has to take a look at, now, by the way, and I'm skipping ahead here. So they got the signatures. It was submitted. The Secretary of State had a chance to review it, and the Secretary of State, what they noted were some very, very glaring issues with the initiative. And the petition originally was that these things should have been decertified because of the way in which they were written. And I'll show you a little bit about what the judge. Now, basically, in the lawsuit, this went to a district judge, and the district judge had a chance to hear from both sides and check out what the district judge had to say about this particular initiative. about and his concerns relating to the initiative. Check it out.
The petitions at issue do not contain a first readable copy. Ladies and gentlemen, in the courtroom, I'm showing you what the petition looks like. I have 20/20 vision. I can't read it. And I don't mean that to be facetious. I simply cannot read it. Moreover, it is not a true copy. It is not a correct copy of the proposed measure. The text of the initiative, as filed by the sponsor, included proposed deletions via strike-throughs, double bracketed parentheses so as to indicate offsets and underlines. The text on the reverse side of the petitions does not include deletions and underlines. It is not a replica of the text contained in the petition filed with the Secretary of State.
Okay, so mind you, so there's two requirements here that the judge is saying were violated. One is the fact that it's got to be readable. So what they did was they took a 30-plus page initiative and they printed the entire thing on the back of an 8.5 by 11 or 11.5 by 17 sheet of paper. 33 pages. The font was less than 5-point font. The thing that he noted is he said he couldn't read it. He's like, he's got 20/20 vision and he could not read. He actually had, as he went and he read the initiative in order to see if it was in fact a true copy, he had to have it blown up in order for him to be able to read it. But then, and so by the way, when he finally did get to read it, he noted that the language and the text that was in the initiative that was being circulated was different than the language that was submitted for approval. Well, how is that? How can that be? And why is that an issue? It's an issue because if anyone wanted to take the time to actually read the initiative before they signed it, one of the things they would notice is that there's strike-throughs. Strike-throughs is when you are eliminating part of the law. There's language that you're taking out, and then you're replacing it with other language. Well, if you don't have the strike-throughs, then how do you know what the initiative actually does? You don't. Because you don't know what language was taken out. So he's noting here that clearly, so number one, you didn't have it so that people could read it. And even if people did take the time to magnify it and actually read it, the language wasn't consistent. Now, mind you, he did note that the Secretary of State, the Secretary of State's job is very specific, to certify whether or not there are enough signatures. Right? That's their job. But and by the way, they did have enough signatures. So one of the reasons why they're coming to court, and one of the reasons why this judge chose to throw it out, was because, well, that's kind of their job. Because the Secretary of State couldn't have thrown it out because that's not her job. Her job was to certify the signatures under the law. But there's very specific things under the law that an initiative must have in order to be qualified. And he talks about them here. Check it out.
This court has the duty to ensure that the process complies with the law. Voters have a right to know. Sponsors have a corresponding obligation to provide what the initiative seeks to accomplish. A full, complete, and readable proposed initiative serves those rights and those obligations. Otherwise, there is no assurance that voters would know what the proposed changes were. The text on the back of these petitions do not allow the voters to make informed decisions. For this court to hold otherwise would be to condone non-compliance with the clear provisions of the law.
So what the judge said here is saying here is, well, look, there's a law. There's a law in terms of what you're supposed to comply with. They did not comply with the law, meaning they broke the law. Now, the person who's supposed to be enforcing the law is the Attorney General, Mr. Bob Ferguson. Now, I think we had a pretty good idea that Mr. Ferguson was probably going to side on the anti-gun side of this, seeing as how he actually endorsed the initiative. So, but here's the crazy part. And they noted that, it's unusual because normally the Attorney General doesn't come out and support initiatives one way or the other. But what's really crazy about this one is he actually endorsed it before it was submitted for title and summary. He endorsed this initiative in April, before it was an initiative. In April. And then it was submitted for title and summary in May. So we already knew something was hinky. So here's the guy whose responsibility it is to enforce the law, and he turned a blind eye. Quite honestly, if it hadn't been for the Second Amendment Foundation and them filing a lawsuit in order to have this petition thrown out, no one would have known. Or at least, let's clarify. Most people would not have known. I know you guys would have known. Those of you in Washington State who follow this stuff. I know you because you guys are hardcore. But I know you would have known. But if it hadn't been for that lawsuit, they wouldn't have known. And luckily, you had a judge who decided he was going to make sure, Judge Dixon, he was going to make sure that the law was followed. Unfortunately, that was not to be for long, because the decision within a week would be appealed to the state Supreme Court there in Washington State. And, well, needless to say, the truth was destroyed.
The judge ruled that I-1639 can proceed, this after it was put on hold last week. King 5's Alyssa Hahn live in the newsroom with the very latest on this. Alyssa.
Mark and Amanda, the state Supreme Court just overturned last week's decision by a lower court. So now the most sweeping gun safety initiative in recent state history will be allowed on the November ballot. Initiative 1639 would raise the legal age to purchase a semi-automatic rifle to 21 and enhance background checks for those firearms. Last week, a Thurston County Superior Court judge blocked that initiative because its petition violated procedure. Basically, a printing error resulted in a formatting mistake on the petition itself. But today, the state Supreme Court rejected that ruling, saying the court can only review the petition's number of signatures, not the wording on the petition. In a statement tonight, the Second Amendment Foundation said the state Supreme Court is choosing to ignore the law by allowing the initiative to go forward in the general election. Reporting live in the newsroom, Alyssa Hahn, King 5 News.
A printing error. Did you hear what they just classified it as? A printing error. Now, you guys heard what he said. Now, I just gave you a small snippet. I'll link to his entire ruling. It's about 14 minutes. I'll link to the entire ruling. Actually, it's in the description of this video. So check that out, because that will give you an idea of exactly what he ruled on. And we're not talking about a procedural, we're not talking about a printing error. We're talking about the fact that they just decided that they were going to obfuscate the law and ignore and make it so that it's unreadable. They broke procedures, they broke the law, and the state Supreme Court said, well, no, you can only look at this. Well, no, that's actually not what they can do, because, see, their decision has no bearing in the law, except that, no, they're right. The Secretary of State's job is to certify the number of signatures, not necessarily the process. But if the process has been broken, it's the job of the courts to step up and say, no, you broke the law. Now, the person who should have called him out on it was the Attorney General. But we already know he's in Michael Bloomberg's pocket. So clearly he was going, him and Paul Allen, let's not forget Paul Allen, So it's already clear that the truth was not going to be told. It's already clear that he was not going to do his job. Already clear. So in step Alan Gottlieb and the Second Amendment Foundation, who step up to the plate and do their job. They do the job they do the job that the Attorney General there in Washington, Mr. Bobby Ferguson, is supposed to do. And a judge, according to the law, threw it out. And the state Supreme Court, according to politics, put it back in. So, as you guys can see, this whole initiative process, this whole initiative up there in Washington is a hot ghetto mess. And they need our help. They need each and every one of us who are paying attention. Look, I don't know what I'm still kind of looking to see what other initiatives there are out there, but I can tell you this. This is a pretty big one there in the state of Washington. This is a state where you literally have the anti-gun community is seeking to build a West Coast wall of gun control. Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, they are working hard here on this West Coast to be able to make it so that you cannot own a firearm if you are anywhere near the Pacific. That is their goal. They won't say that's their goal. They deny that's their goal. But all I can do is look at the policies that they keep trying to implement. California, we're way behind the 8 ball. I mean, we are literally almost behind enemy lines here. But Washington, Oregon, and Nevada, they are not lost yet. They are not. They're still putting up a strong fight, and we're there, right there, in all 3 of those states, fighting with them. So we need to pay attention. We need to be active and engaged, and we need to help them fight this particular initiative. So make sure you're paying attention. Make sure you're looking for the no on I-1639 folks there online. Find a way in which you can get plugged in. I am sure that we will be talking with you as the campaign goes on to help you guys get plugged in to a number of the things and find out how you can be of assistance. But this is ridiculous. This is outrageous. This is, I say this a lot, and so I kind of feel like I'm being a little bit redundant when I say this, but I'm going to put it to you this way. It is very disheartening when people who ignore the law expect to write law and then expect those of us who are law-abiding to follow the law that they put forward, in particular when they break the law in the creation of that law. If you are not going to respect the rule of law in the creation of a law, then why should we respect your law? I'm just saying that's the sort of attitude that the gun grabbers are creating out there. And if any of you out there are watching, any of you gun grabbers out there, and I know some of you do, just know that people will be law-abiding until the point where the law becomes, well, how shall we say, so absurd that they're going to refuse to follow it. And I promise you there are some very, very good, very nice people that you know who are law-abiding citizens who will not allow themselves to be disarmed by you. So just know you've been warned. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you guys following us on Facebook, following us on Twitter and YouTube, and as well as our podcast. We appreciate you guys for spreading the word about the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.